the key question that I want to pose to both of you is, well, what is it that business leaders or leaders, global citizens need to do to help build this regenerative economy, understanding this kind of, I wouldn't call it a paradox, but this kind of these two forces that need to happen, the intersection of human development and systemic and social change.
Well, I'll say something brief because this is really your domain. But one of my teachers is a lovely, wonderful woman called Monica Sharma, who taught me. She draws 3 concentric circles on the board, and she says the outer circle, and this is my interpretation, she would say it differently, but the outer circle represents all the problems in the world that people wake up in the morning and try to solve. And it's brilliant and terrific that humanity wants to solve problems, whether you're in the business sector or the government sector or the nonprofit sector. We generally get up and try to solve problems. Then there's the inner circle, which is sort of the consciousness space, and the monks and the Dalai Lama focus on the consciousness space with the idea that if we can shift consciousness, the problems will go away. And what Monica says is that, and Monica worked in the UN and she was very involved in addressing the AIDS crisis in Africa very successfully. And what she talks about is that there's this third circle which sits between the consciousness and the problems, which is the system design. And there's a bunch of system scientists at places like MIT down the road who work on system design. But Monica says if you want to change the world, you actually need to work at all 3 levels at the same time. And that's really hard. And I think most, if you look at the kind of the conscious business community, there's a huge focus on the consciousness level and the problem. But there's very little effort to actually change the system design. And I believe that the system we have is rooted in the consciousness of the day, and therefore the problems we have are designed are the outcome of the system we have. So ultimately, shifting the consciousness will be necessary to shift the design, which will then enable us to deal with the problems. But in order to work on that, you have to have your fingers dirty in the problems of the world while you're working on the system design, while you're working on the consciousness piece. I don't know how to do that. That's
and what type of human being, what type of instrument do we need to be in order to be able to do that? I think is the question that we're all kind of evolving towards. And I think that your work is all about.
Yeah, well, because first of all, I resonate a lot with your description, and then I'd say, one big part of how we process reality is through our sensory input. We see things, we feel things, we hear things. So, like, exploring, like, the data that is being channeled into that biocomputer, and that's the basis also of how I think, there are many aspects that are related to perception. And perception, again, is based upon my development and where I come from, where my ancestors come from, which system I live in. So on the one hand, systems imprint information in our kind of neural networks. And so a human being exploring the basis of their perception and thinking is an awareness process. So I have to have a certain inner process to know what's actually the basis, what's the filter system that I experience the world through. What are the things that I see? What are the things that I don't see, even if I think I see them? So that's like to have more awareness around my inner, like the makeup of my biocomputer is essential. I think that's the first place. And the second thing is that I believe outer design, we are able to create the cultural house that we live in based upon our inner architecture. So when we look at consciousness work, we look at like presence and awareness, and we look at inner architecture and the awareness of the blueprint of my inner makeup. Because my inner makeup will be how I respond to my employees, how I respond in my intimate relationship. And in our work, we work with a model that says, okay, there's there's a different circles of intimacy in my life that I can experience. I can have a contact just to myself. For many people, that's already challenging. If you ask a person, what do you feel? Often people give you interpretations of what they think they feel. They cannot respond back and say, oh, that's what I feel. If you ask many people, how much are you aware of just of your body? That's not so given. Even if you think people feel their body, many people are disembodied through their own history. And so now a healthy self-contact means that I have a healthy self-regulation. Many people are not aware of the level of activation that they live in every day. So they go to work, but they're actually not relaxed. They are actually already on a high level of activation when there is external stress. The system is close to decompensate, and we need stronger compensations and addictions and all kinds of stuff to balance what is actually already too high to start with. So the process of activation and relaxation doesn't necessarily work really in everybody because we are too activated. Trauma is already kind of a higher activation. So I have less capacity to balance my daily challenges. And so and if I have an unhealthy self-regulation and I am the owner of a business, I will transfer my own incapability to regulate myself. I will create stress in the system, and that system will be defined by my inner dysregulation. And so that's very important. And then, of course, my family lives in the imprint of my own family experience. If I had a hard time growing up, my current family lives in that area in my interior world. My team or my company or the country that I live in or the global society lives in a circle of intimacy in me. And so that means if I'm able to have a felt relation within my family, I create a healthy family system. That's the basis of life, a healthy family system. But there are many people that have a good relation to the global market, but when they come home to their kids and their family, it's a very dysfunctional system. So, but that dysfunction will affect the way how we create cultures in companies or how we create systems. So that's why I think, and when I listen to your approach, I'm really totally in alignment with what you're bringing. I think it's super important. Yeah, I want to highly underline that I think whatever we do, and especially in leadership, if I don't know who I am fully, all of this will affect my relations and the way how I construct the world around me. Yeah.
I have one response which came up that I have to share, which is a little troubling. But clearly leadership is a place to focus for the healthy inner. But the other thing is that in our current capitalist system, the flow of investment capital, I often say the bridge to the future economy is what we invest in today. And so those that control the flow of investment capital, which are large corporations, large investment funds, large governments, have an enormous say in the health of the future system. And then if you think about the integral health of the individuals who are controlling large pools of capital, it makes me nervous, to be honest. Because there's something about our system that doesn't always attract the healthiest, most balanced, holistic people to those positions. To get to those positions, you often need to be super competitive, super aggressive, and yet, whether it's a hedge fund activist taking over a company and firing people for a short-term pop in the stock, or ExxonMobil's decision to continue drilling for oil. These are really important decisions that we've given license to in our free market system to anybody who happens to show up.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that there are those systems, but the systems ultimately are made out of us. And I think one thing that we can do, and then that's also what I hear in your own life journey, that one moment there was a kind of a realization, and then you say, okay, no, that's not working for me anymore. And I think we have to count on everybody that has a certain kind of what I call awakening, like a certain call suddenly, and say, wow, something needs to change. It doesn't feel congruent with my values and the way how I look at the world. And I think the more we induce caring and change, and even the capital markets are our issue to take care of. Because I believe that democracy, or however we will call it then, can only work if we are grown-up human beings, that every one of us takes on the challenges along our way. Because if I project my energy onto a government to solve stuff that I don't solve, but I can solve, then the system doesn't work. I have to do whatever comes along my way, and you do it. And then if we trust in each other's capacity that everybody does their thing, we do the thing.
Right.
And that I think that's what we need
If
to...
we wake up.
If we wake up.
Well, Brian, thanks for organizing this, and Thomas, it's a real pleasure. I look forward to continuing this.
Yeah,
this
me too.
conversation.
Very much so, very much so.